Hello, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really big shift in how businesses think. A move to treat people not just as, resources, but as the absolute core engine of value. This is all about the future of human capital management. For decades, let's be honest, many of us have seen the human resources department as a purely administrative function. You know the drill, right? Handling payroll, processing leave requests, and just ticking all the compliance boxes. It's often felt like a necessary part of the business, but a reactive one. But what if we just flipped that script completely? What if we reframed the whole people function, moving it from what's seen as a cost center to a core value creator? Well, that is the central promise of a strategic approach that is gaining some serious momentum. Okay, so here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll explore the big strategic promise of what's called human capital management, or HCM. Then, we're going to tackle the doubts and the skepticism it faces. After that, we'll get super practical, looking at how you can actually link HR to real business results, how to convince the key players to get on board, and finally, we'll map out a practical path forward. So, what is the big promise here? Well, the people who believe in this think HCM can elevate the people function from a backstage support role to a main stage strategic partner, someone who's actually helping to steer the entire organization. At its heart, HCM is really about a fundamental shift in perspective. It's not just a new set of HR activities, it's a whole system for turning human potential into tangible business value. The two big ideas to hang on to here are strategic and driving business performance. So, what's the engine that powers this whole strategic shift? Well, as this quote from Nicholas Higgins makes crystal clear, it is all about measurement. See, HR can't just claim it's strategically important, it has to prove it with cold, hard data. The goal is to optimize performance and minimize risk, and you just can't do that without the right metrics. But, of course, this data-driven approach isn't without its critics. Not everyone's on board. The very idea of HCM faces some pretty significant pushback, both on a philosophical level and a practical one. One of the biggest hurdles is, well, it's right there in the name: human capital. A lot of managers, especially inside HR, are really uncomfortable with that term. They worry it's dehumanizing, that it reduces people to just numbers on a spreadsheet. And this right here captures the central paradox perfectly. Think about it. The very things that make people so valuable, their creativity, their flexibility, all that knowledge they have that you can't just write down in a manual, those are the hardest things to measure. And of course, the real kicker, unlike a piece of machinery, the company doesn't actually own its people. So given that paradox, how in the world do you bridge that gap? How do we move beyond these vague statements and create a real, tangible, measurable link between how we manage people and the actual results of the business? We've all heard executives say it, right? Our people are our greatest asset. And hey, the sentiment is nice, but a cliche is not a strategy. We need a specific, evidence-based approach to really show their value and figure out how to invest in them. Now, this is how you make that connection real. Just look at the chart. You start with a clear business goal, maybe something like innovation. Then you identify the HR activities that support it, things like skills development. And finally, you track specific data, like competence levels or employee survey results, to see if those activities are actually moving the needle. The holy grail here is to move from just seeing a connection to proving cause and effect. You want to be able to say, with data-backed confidence, when we invest in this leadership program, we see a direct, measurable improvement in customer satisfaction and profitability. Of course, having a brilliant framework is pretty useless if you can't get people to actually use it. A strategic approach to HCM isn't just an HR thing. No way. It needs buy-in from every single level of the organization. Success really depends on convincing a lot of different groups, from the C-suite all the way to investors. But as this chart shows, there's one group that is absolutely critical: line managers. They're the ones on the front lines, interacting with employees every single day. And this highlights a key finding from a ton of research. There's this great saying: HR proposes, but the line disposes. What that means is, if your line managers aren't bought in or don't know how to implement a new policy, it's pretty much guaranteed to fail, no matter how well designed it is. This quote from Neil Rodden just nails how you persuade them. You don't talk in abstract HR theory. You frame it in terms of practical benefits and business outcomes. You speak their language, connecting HR initiatives directly to performance, efficiency, and yeah, even their bonus. So, how do you actually do this? Well, the key thing to remember is that it's not an all or nothing deal. You don't have to transform your entire HR function overnight. Instead, you can build up your HCM capabilities in manageable, logical stages. Think of it like an elevator. You start on the ground floor with basic, readily available data like turnover rates, just to spot some trends. Then you can ride up to the intermediate level using stuff like employee surveys to help guide your strategy. And the top floor? That's the advanced state, where you're actually calculating the direct ROI of your programs and maybe even using predictive analytics to see which new hires are going to be your next top performers. But look, to get to those advanced stages and truly partner with the business, HR professionals themselves have to evolve. This journey requires new skills, for sure, especially in data analysis and business acumen, so they can speak the language of finance and strategy and have real credibility. Ultimately, this powerful approach gives us a whole new lens to see performance. And it leaves us with one last, really provocative thought. If HCM lets us see business performance through our people, what happens when the data shows you have a highly engaged, highly skilled workforce, but the company's strategy is failing them? It suggests your human capital data isn't just a report card for HR, it might just be a report card for the entire business strategy.